Good man to talk to, break it all down for us. Tony, good to see you. Thanks for your time. So what did you make of what you've been able to read of AEMO's report today, suggesting that blackouts this summer could be a regular occurrence, and things have worsened steadily in 6 months, it says?
Look, Pete, I think this has been coming for a while. I mean, every one of these reports for several years now have been saying, we need to get on with this, we need to get on with this, we need to get on with this. And now the time to get this sorted out is becoming very difficult, because we've got to meet our climate change objectives, because that's getting nasty. As we know, the temperature's going up, even if interest rates are on hold. At the same time, the coal-fired power stations are getting less reliable. And so as we go into a summer, with expectations of hotter, drier weather and expectations of maybe less reliable power stations, things are looking tricky. So they're warning that it's not going to happen, but the probability of this happening is becoming nasty. So as the same way that people are preparing their homes in the bush against fires, we need to be preparing for things that could go nasty. Now, it's not a forecast, but it's getting tricky. And as you said, the longer term means we just got to get on and build a whole lot of stuff we haven't been doing.
Does Eraring, just for starters, does Eraring in New South Wales just need to stay open for longer?
Well, that's what it looks like. Now, the New South Wales government's had a report to suggest that could be one of the things that has to be done. And they'll be discussing that with the owners of that power station, Origin Energy, to see, making sure. And Origin has said they're not going to turn it off if it's going to risk power outages. So there'll be some action there, in the same way that the Victorian government has put in some contracts with the two of the big coal generators in Victoria to make sure that's okay. But they are getting older and they are getting less reliable. We've also seen the Snowy Hydro 2.0 project much, much later, and now eye-wateringly more expensive. In addition to that, only a few weeks ago, the Tasmanian Premier warned that the cost of Marinus Link, that's the transmission line to get renewable energy from Tasmania into Victoria, looks like the cost has gone through the roof as well, and they're not sure they want to even do it. So we'll see. There's a lot of things, and they're all coming together, and that's what this report is warning us about. A lot of things could go okay, but they could go wrong at the same time.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned Snowy 2.0. I mean, that's just become a basket case of a policy, hasn't it?
Well, it was supposed to cost a couple of $2 billion and be finished in 2021. That's not a good story. And I think there's a price at which these things just shouldn't go ahead. But of course, this is a very important part of infrastructure, and we've spent I don't know how many billions already. So it's going to be a very tricky decision for that company. And remember, that company is owned by the Commonwealth Government. Just
on the blame game this morning when it comes to energy, I'm reminded by that meme of all the different Spider-Men looking at all the other Spider-Men. You had, the government blaming the opposition today, the opposition blaming the government, the opposition blaming the Victorian government because that's going to be worse. I mean, no one wants to take ownership still, do they?
And I think, honestly, Pete, that's been the problem for a while now, is that, well, yes, we think this is the problem, but someone else should do something about it. And that's not helpful. They need to come together. And it's an opportunity here for the federal government. I mean, a lot of these things do come down to the states, and that's true. But it's also, if we can get some clear leadership now this is an opportunity for Minister Bowen, who I think is up to it, to really bring them together and say, look, we now need to do this. We cannot muck around anymore. We haven't got the luxury of time. We haven't got the luxury of cost. We've now got to get onto this, and we are being warned, as we have been before, this is getting nasty. But I've never seen language as strong as this coming out of the market operator, that this is becoming a real risk.
Just a simple question to close here, Tony. What causes a blackout? Not enough power into a system with too much demand?
Mostly, local blackouts are caused by possums on the power lines and trucks going into a post or something. That's the sort of thing that causes most blackouts. We do get situations at times when there is a really nasty, and usually they're short and sharp, situations where they've got to, in the worst case, turn off some suburbs, for example, turn down for only a few hours to try and get some control on the system. Hasn't happened for a while. It did happen in Victoria 2 or 3 years ago, one afternoon. There were some rolling blackouts, but they don't tend to be like, as happened in South Australia, where the whole state goes black. They're not like that. And what they're doing now is also planning for large consumers who can actually reduce their consumption if things get really tight. And they can be paid to do that. So this is about planning for that. And I think there's a lot of things that can be done. I'm not worried about blackouts in my home, but I'm certainly concerned that the problems could just get worse and the risks get higher.
Sure. Tony, always good to chat. Thanks for your time. We'll talk to you soon.